A little heads up, if you don't like the way college athletics is headed, I don't think you're going to like this episode. Locked on Illini, let's go.
You are Locked on Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked on Illini. My name is Sonny Verma. You can find me in all your favorite social medias. Do a search for Locked on Illini or just do a search for The Sonny B. Also available at thesonnyb@icloud.com. If you want to provide any sort of feedback on the show, say something nice, say something not so nice, just keep it productive. And productive is what I'm trying to do here on this show. I feel like I'm supposed to release one episode a day, but there's just so much content out there that it's hard for me to decide what we want to talk about. And I think at the forefront is, let me just tell you that my jaw is dropping at some of the quotes I'm hearing about the transfer portal season. You know, obviously that's what's happening here with college basketball in general. As of Wednesday morning, there were 1,700 names in the transfer portal and counting. And it's going to continue for at least, the next 30 days or so. But how does this affect the Illini? Of course, it's going to affect the Illini in a lot of ways. More importantly, you know, Illinois has got their core four, right? Or core five that you're talking about with Trey White, Thomas Lavavicic, Morris Johnson, and Kylan Boswell, all guys who we're hoping to bring back. I will tell you that Illinois still feels pretty confident that they're going to be bringing these guys back. But unfortunately, the price that they thought they were going to pay on Sunday is a lot different today. And that doesn't really have to do with just Illinois. That's everybody. And I know I've been hinting about it for the past couple of weeks. Just talking about, now that revenue sharing is nearing, that teams are just being a little bit more aggressive with the money and the salaries, or salaries, I guess is technically the wrong word, but the NIL funds that are being dished out to these players. But let me tell you, to give you an example, right? A person, I've already mentioned that Illinois is recruiting in the transfer portal today. I don't want to say his name now because someone's going to snip it and then put it on some website and act like I'm reporting it. I'm not reporting it. This is hearsay. If I know something concrete, I would tell you. But a person I've already confirmed on the show that Illinois is recruiting in the transfer portal, supposedly he's already been offered $2+ million to play basketball next season. And yes, it is by one of the Blue Bloods. But for me, do you all remember how big of a deal it was when Coleman Hawkins was reportedly offered $2 million to come back to play college basketball? And unfortunately for Coleman, he was under the spotlight the entire year. Whether anytime he had a slip up or a bad game, they'd be calling him the $2 million man. And even in his postseason press conference, his last one of the season, like the wrap up, he talked about the pressures that came when that information leaked out. Well, let me tell you, that $2 million is being offered to B+ type of players now, not just the A+. You're not just talking about the top of the top recruits. Now, at this point, if you're an above average starter, you can get millions of dollars to come play college basketball because some school out there is going to shell it out. And so for Illinois is a team that's always been very aggressive when it comes to the financial aspect of the game. And all credit to Brad Underwood, all credit to Josh Whitman, Icon, all of them. They've never really let financials be the reason that a kid doesn't commit. Now, they can't outspend teams like BYU or the Kansases or the Kentuckys. They're not quite at the top tier, but they're right just a step below. But with the way some of these prices are going, I think Illinois has to be grateful that they have this core that they want to bring back. Because you kind of assume that even though they got more expensive, it is going to be you're going to get some sort of hometown discount, with a guy like Kylan and Trey. Those are guys who excelled in the Illinois system. And so I doubt that they are just going to chase the top dollar. They may be willing to settle a little bit as in a comfortable environment that they know that they can thrive in. But this is not just the transfer portal. I'm talking about. I'm raising my hand because I'm responsible for this just as much as anybody, have been talking about the future of the Illinois roster, right? And almost every single time I include the kid Dame Sarr from Italy. He's a European prospect, a top prospect. I imagine he's going to end up being in the top 20, 25-ish when the final rankings come out. And I've been saying it kind of matter-of-factly, like it's just a matter of time, right? If Will Riley goes to the NBA, then Sarr will come right in and replace him. Well, the money in the transfer portal is also affecting recruiting. And I will say I can't give out too much details because I don't know as much. There's content out there at paid websites, but this website is absolutely free, and I continue to want to make it free, this show. So I can't disclose those details, but what I can confirm is that certainly it looks like certain blue bloods have caught notice to Sarr's performances playing over in Europe as of late, and even Sarr's price tag has gone up. Now, I still fully expect Sarr to eventually commit here to Illinois, but had you asked me 2 days ago, I would have said I fully expect Sarr to commit to Illinois. I do know now that I'm not nearly as confident as I was before. Now it's a simple matter of maybe a 7 out of 10, but still a situation that Illinois fans need to continue to monitor. And the reason I bring that up is because I've seen a lot of Twitter accounts. I don't know how legit they are, but, a lot of them have mentioned, it's just a matter of time. It could happen in a couple of days. Dame Sarr is going to commit to the Illini. It's going to happen very, very soon. I'm not so sure about that. Obviously right now the priority for Illinois probably still should be Will Riley. But think about it. If I just told you B+ players are making $2 million on that open market right now, what is the guy like Will Riley worth? Will Riley, who I think if he were to return to the Illini next season, could very well be not just all Big Ten, but potentially an All-American player. 6'8", a guy that size, a pure scorer who I think, again, if he came back, he could legit be a top 10 pick in the NBA draft next year. What is that worth? And so, this is all, I hate to use the word, but it's true, right? It's kind of a salary cap situation now with Illinois. Like, of course, I think the priority has to be Will. You need Will Riley to tell you no, that he's not coming back before you move on to other options, right? Or do you? This is also one of those situations, it's like we kind of had it last year with Coleman Hawkins. Coleman Hawkins wanted to go test the NBA waters. And Brad Underwood had a decision to make. And, what he decided to do was, because he had so many rosters to fill, he gave a decent portion of that salary cap, I'm using in quotes if you're listening to this on audio, to Ben Humrickhouse to come in and play that 4 spot and essentially not leaving the opportunity open for Coleman Hawkins to return to the Illini after that. Now, there's no way Illinois would have paid Coleman $2 million anyway. So again, this is not anything against Brad or Coleman Hawkins. I think what happened was the best situation for everybody. Coleman Hawkins got paid, and good for him, $2 million. But there's a lot of people who don't understand why Illinois didn't wait for Coleman. And I think now that talk gets a little louder because Ben, unfortunately, didn't quite work out. But it's funny because history is kind of repeating itself. It's a question that we have to ponder to ourselves. Should Illinois try to lock down a guy like Dame Sarr immediately at a very high NIL amount? Or is it worth waiting for Will Riley to see what he ultimately decides to do? Now, again, I've been very clear. I don't expect Will Riley to come back. Especially if he's a top 20 pick in this upcoming NBA draft. I think if he was my son, he'd be a fool not to go to the NBA. Of course, as an Illinois fan, I'll put my big block eye baseball cap on and say, listen, Will, come back. You can be an All-American next year and you can make top 10 money, and that'll be, triple what your salary will be this past season. But it's very easy to say that when I'm not related to the kid. I look at these situations as if I'm the father. And if I'm Will's dad or Will's mom, I'm saying, hey, you know what? You've shown what you can do. There's NBA teams interested in you. I would move on. But that's the conundrum, right? And this is what Illinois is kind of dealing with. And I know Illinois was well prepared for this. And I'm not just talking about Sarr. I'm talking about this whole transfer portal situation. What I'm telling you, the Illini fan, is that we knew things were going to get crazy when it comes to this offseason, but I'm not kidding when I say we underestimated just how crazy it was going to be. There's going to be dollar figures that you're going to hear about, and I will try to confirm here or there, but just know that if Illinois is able to bring their core back next year, it's going to be for a lot more money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. And you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Me personally, I'm spending way too much money going out to eat. I got 2 kids. I'm tired. It's easy to go get food from the fast food restaurant. I know I got to keep that in check. And with Monarch Money, instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. And welcome back to Locked On Illini. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do, and make sure you've hit that like button. I told you this was going to be a really good episode, and it's going to continue to be, because just like I talked about in that first segment, not only did the player and building a roster turnover get that much more difficult, but I think the Big Ten in general is going to be a lot more difficult with some of the new coaches that have been hired within the conference. And to give us a little preview of the new guys, I'm bringing on dear friend JR from the Big Ten Huddle. JR, thank you again for coming on.
Glad to be here.
Hi, JR. Let's start with, actually, you decided. Indiana, I'm assuming. They're probably the biggest brand name.
Yeah, sure. We start there. Darren Devries, had the 1 year at West Virginia. I was just talking to my mother-in-law, who is a huge Indiana fan, earlier today. She was very concerned about, was Devries cheating on West Virginia? Was they maybe talking a little bit to Indiana during the season? And I mean, maybe, who knows? Who cares? Indiana got their guy. This is exactly why Indiana, wanted to get the information out that Mike Woodson wasn't going to be there next year so early on. And kudos to Illinois for making that happen. You guys, that was your doing. I mean, I guess the students too, chanting, fire him. But still, you guys made them chant that. So, but overall, I mean, I think, he's bringing Tucker DeVries with him. Indiana is losing a number of guys, but like I was telling my family earlier today, like the guys they're losing, I don't want to be rude towards them, but I don't think they're the best players in the world, right? Like Malik Renew gives you some of the emptiest points that I've ever seen a player give a team. Like he is a scorer. He's near 18 points per game, I believe, but nobody would ever believe it because he kind of has garbage time points, number one. And number two, his defense is so horrific that he can score, but he goes down on the other end and either fouls somebody or gives up an easy bucket. So, unfortunately for them, I guess he moves on, but I find it easier to believe that DeVries is going to bring in somebody better, and he's won at both levels, right? He won at the lower level. He gets to West Virginia, should have been in the tournament. I think everybody believes that in his first year, and then they barely don't make it. It's like, well, Indiana was the second team out. West Virginia was the first team out. Might as well hire that guy. It works out.
Yeah, I know that was a running joke that I saw, for Indiana fans. It's like, fire your head coach for not making the tournament and immediately hire a new head coach who, by the way, did not make the NCAA tournament. Let's switch over to Iowa. Ben McCollum. I feel like he, in my opinion, was one of the better names available. And I think this was a really impressive hire for Iowa.
I think it was a good hire because Iowa right now is really struggling with their NIL. It's something that actually push Devries away. That's something I should have said about Indiana. That's one of the reasons why Devries wanted to go to Indiana, is because of how strong the NIL is there. You know, compared to Iowa at the very least. Right now, I mean, there are rumors that the Sanfords were making, you know, less than $500,000, you know, last year, and that, I mean, if you're hearing what guys are getting paid behind the scenes, that is nowhere near, you know, what Peyton Sanford and Owen Freeman and some of the other guys on that team. Josh Dix is apparently getting offered $2 million, I saw today. So he's going
for the record, in the first segment, JR spoiled that, not me.
My bad. But apparently that's just the way it is now. And so Iowa was always behind at NIL. Their football is kind of behind, but Kirk Ferentz is one of those guys that's going to develop his talent. He's going to keep him around. And I think you found pretty much the same guy in Ben McCollum, as long as he sticks around. He has a style of play that allows him to not be as talented and win games with the lower pace and fewer possessions, stuff like that. And so when you combine that with a team that's most likely not going to be going out and getting the Janai Brooms of the world, he's going to be getting in players that are just solid, fit his system, do what they're supposed to do. And I think it's going to translate to maybe not winning the Big Ten, but Iowa fans, I think they're going to make the tournament, and you know, they might get themselves to a second weekend every now and then through that.
Yeah, and I mean, Iowa doesn't have to feel sorry for itself. You know, I talked about in the first segment just how much money there is going around nowadays, and Indiana is at the forefront of that. You know, last year I think they spent about $7 or $8 million in the transfer portal. This year I've heard numbers as high as $10 million just to field a roster, and you know, it's a passionate fan base. It's a fan base that's willing to spend money, especially now that football is rolling too. Like, there's just a lot of excitement in that entire athletic department. So, you know, Indiana, they're going to be the financial juggernaut in the Big Ten as it is. So Iowa isn't, as you mentioned. You know, they've been struggling. They let Fran go. Fran, by the way, congrats, going back to Penn, you know, where he was a student himself to coach. I'm assuming, you know, the swan song of his career. But yeah, I think Ben McCollum is the type of coach that they need, right? A guy who doesn't need the most expensive players. He just runs a really good, solid system. He's from the area. He knows the coaches there already. I think it's going to be one of those. I think this is a really good match. The best match, at least in my opinion, of the three new hires. But speaking of the third, I wasn't very happy when Minnesota let Ben Johnson go. I think Ben was clearly not the problem there, but they moved on and they've hired a new guy. Tell us a little bit about him, JR.
Yeah, Nico Medved, the Colorado State head coach. I agree with you. I was one of the ones kind of pushing the Ben Johnson train. Like, it's not this dude's fault. You're just not supporting him. Like, you're not giving him the NIL that he needs. Well, Nico Medved's going to get the NIL he needs because Nico Medved is a proven coach. That was one of the biggest issues with Ben Johnson, is he came in as an assistant. He was an assistant at multiple different programs. And of course, he was an alumni of Minnesota, so that kind of attracted him there. But we have learned time and time again, the Big Ten is not where you get your first head coaching job at. The Big Ten, like, you do not learn your way into the Big Ten. You might do that in the Big East. You might do that in the Big 12, ACC, or something like that. I mean, the Big 12 is better than that, so probably not there. But you are not going to be a first-year head coach and learn your way into the conference in the Big Ten. It's too good of a conference. Nico Medved has been at 3 different schools, I believe, Furman, Drake, and Colorado State, before coming to Minnesota now. He has a proven track record. He has put multiple players into the NBA, or I believe, if he gets his star player from this year, what was his name? Niche Clifford. If he gets into the NBA, he will have put multiple players into the NBA from Colorado State. Like, tell me how many other people are putting players in the NBA from Colorado State. That's impressive. He's recruited the state of Minnesota before. And on top of that, this is going to be a guy, because of the past success, because of somebody who's willing to go into Minnesota, find talent, and develop it. He's going to have boosters. He's going to have the administration backing him financially, not just with NIL, but with revenue sharing and everything else. I also do like that overall, Minnesota, they're going to have a coach that coaches his team very well. Nico Medved gets a lot out of his guys with their decision-making. They are always very high in assist percentage throughout. I mean, pretty much every single year he was there, they were doing that. Very high effective field goal percentage every year, which means, they're taking good shots. They're not just chucking stuff up. And at the end of the day, he found the magic formula to finally win an NCAA tournament game this year, which was better rebounding and 3-point shooting. He found the formula. So if he can do that at Minnesota, at the very least, he has the scenario where he can come into the Big Ten, possibly be a middle of the pack team, maybe get up to top 5, once every few years or something like that, if he gets the right talent around him. Because as we know, you get the right talent and you are a well-coached team, you can do very well in the Big Ten if things roll your way.
Yeah, I mean, the key for me was, Ben Johnson did have the right talent there for a season, but then they were all
left.
gone. They all
you
left.
Can't develop it. Yeah,
exactly. So for me, it's kind of like an institutional type of thing. The spotlight to me is on Minnesota. Are you going to support what looks like is a very solid head coach at the college basketball level? So it's just as much on them as it's going to be about the X's and O's. And speaking of X's and O's, after this, JR is going to preview the Big Ten teams remaining, at least from the Big Ten. We're all about the stats because numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada PRO-4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada PRO-4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada PRO-4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com. All right, Jay. Apparently there still is a Big Ten, or there's still a March Madness tournament going on. This is news to me. I've been all focused in on the transfer portal madness. But, that's why I have a guy like you on who covers the entire Big Ten. Let's talk about some of the matchups of some of our rivals. Let's just start with the one to the east, the Purdue Boilermakers.
Yeah, Purdue versus Houston. Houston was my pick in my bracket to win it all. So, I'm not a Purdue hater. I'm just rooting for my bracket, okay? That's all I'm doing here. That's all I'm doing.
You got to be careful with that.
I got to be careful what I say around them. So, I'm just kidding. No, but really, this is going to be a really tough game for Purdue. Houston has quietly been one of the best teams in the country. They're an outstanding three-point shooting team. Now, they're not, they don't shoot a barrage of three-pointers. So, that's kind of one of the reasons why they are such an effective three-point shooting team. But the thing that I hate about this matchup for Purdue is the 2-point defense. The defense in the paint for Houston is absolutely elite. And what have we seen this year when TKR goes up against really good defenders down low? He's all by himself, right? He's not going to dish it to Caleb First, and Caleb First is going to make a move on somebody. Wilberg, he's a pretty good, field goal percentage shooter down there. But, to go from playing McNeese State and, which I'm not trying to disrespect them, but to go from playing them in High Point to Houston, it's a pretty big jump there. So does Purdue have a chance? Purdue always has a chance with Fletcher Lawyer being able to get hot and Braden Smith, but Braden Smith also hasn't been that good lately. Not to his standard. He's been good for other players' standards.
You're trolling that fan base. They're going to find you, JR.
Listen, I've seen Purdue fans say Braden's been underwhelming, so they can get mad at me all they want, but they're the ones saying it too. So I feel like once I see them saying it, I can say it. But anyway, but that's my thing is if Braden Smith does come out and have a huge game, they can win this one, but it's going to take an A+ effort by Purdue, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and probably a B effort from Houston. I think if Houston plays A+, there's nothing Purdue can do, unfortunately. Houston's just that good. But I will say I do like that Purdue has had their role players doing better here lately. Cam Heide, Jakari Harris, CJ Cox, those guys, they've been doing better here in the tournament. Now, is that because they found something? They turned into really good players? Or is that because they're playing McNeese State and High Point? I don't know. We'll find out against Houston. It'll be really interesting to see. But I think I like Houston to win that one, but there's always the wild card for Purdue getting hot. We saw them do it against Rutgers. And it'll be at home, kind of. Gainbridge, not Mackey, but still. I mean, that's more home for them than it is for Houston. So who knows? Maybe the crowd there gets into it. They get hot and they just start draining threes.
Go Cougars. Who's next?
Let's do Michigan State next. Michigan State, I like this matchup for them against Ole Miss. Chris Beard has done a good job. He's kind of become back in the good graces with some fan bases, maybe want him. So I think here in, the next year or two, he'll probably find himself at a better program. But I like this one specifically because Ole Miss, not really an offensive rebounding team, not really a great effective field goal percentage shooting team. I mean, they're not bad, but, they're not as great as you need to be. And Michigan State, great job on the offensive boards, great job just rebounding in general from that team. As long as Michigan State keeps Jackson Kohler out of foul trouble, I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys for them. When Jackson Kohler gets in foul trouble, their front court really suffers because Tom Izzo doesn't have that option to go to. Carson Cooper, good defender. Zapala, he's a good guy to throw in there as a big body to kind of, be physical with some other guys. But at the end of the day, you need Jackson Kohler in there for his offense, for his rebounding. And then Jace Richardson. Jace Richardson needs to be the dude. He needs to be the alpha. He needs to be the one that's hitting shots. It was nice that Jaden Akins was able to kind of, rise up that, I think it was he against Bryan or was it against the other one? One of the last two games, Jaden Akins rose up and was a really good contributor for him. But I'm not going to rely on Jaden Akins to do that every single game. It's kind of like Roddy Gale with Michigan. Like, it was really good that Roddy Gale did that. But I'm not going to rely on Roddy Gale to be my option number one every single game. Similar thing with Michigan State. Jaden Akins, good defender, good guy on the fast break, brings a lot of things to your team, but you want Jace Richardson to be your number one scoring option, not Jaden Akins.
Yeah, I mean, their season turned around once they realized that, right?
Hey, and once Jace had the confidence to play that way, I think that was the biggest thing. He just needed the confidence, and when it happened, they flipped the switch. They were good.
So. Hand up, like me all season long was saying, wait till I think Michigan State's good. I don't think they're great. But then once Jace became the player that he was, I was like, I had to admit that I was wrong. And you know what? No, this team is now great. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they, continue to make a run for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of the season, I said the biggest concern I have with this Michigan State team is they don't have an alpha. I said Jace Richardson can become that alpha, but he's just a freshman. So it's going to take some very quick development for him to get there and do that. Thankfully for them, they had a pretty easy road to begin their Big Ten schedule. It was much more difficult in the back end, but they handled the back end and they won the conference. So can't complain. All right, you want to go to Michigan next?
Let's do it.
All right, Michigan versus Auburn. I do think Michigan has a chance here because of the way Auburn's been playing lately. They've lost 3 of their last 6 games, and this is kind of a crazy stat. I'll mention it on my show tomorrow, but I'll give you guys a sneak peek here. Auburn, when they win, their offensive rating is 96th percentile in the country. When they lose, their defensive rating is 0th percentile. So they go from 96th, and this is average. Like, this isn't like, oh, one game they lost, one game no. This is the average. The average defensive rating of the team goes from 96th percentile to 0th percentile. I don't even know if 0th is a word. I'm just making it up at this point, right? Like, I didn't come prepared with the vocabulary for this stat. But no, for real, like, this is an Auburn team that if Michigan finds their offense in a way that really, disrupts Auburn with their defense, and their defense is not able to guard against them well enough, and Danny Wolf is able to kind of get loose, go crazy, Trey Donaldson is able to hit 2 or 3 3-pointers in the game, that's going to be key for Michigan. And it's a Trey Donaldson game against his old team, right? Was it the right decision for Chris Beard to push out the guards on Auburn for Pettiford? Was that the right idea? Should he have kept a hold of Trey Donaldson for at least one more year while Pettiford developed? I mean, Pettiford's been really, really good, so I'm not going to say that, the loss is on him if they lose. But if the shoe fits, I'll be coming back on the show and saying I was right. So.
That's right.
So, all right, you want to hear about Maryland? Then we'll be done.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Maryland, Florida. Florida, super good offensive rebounding team.
Okay.
Maryland struggles with the defensive rebounding. I mean, you guys know that, right? Was that Maryland that played you guys that had the really bad rebounding game, or was that Michigan they played like that?
They beat our brains in twice this season. I don't
Okay.
need to keep rehashing that.
All
Yeah,
right. My bad. I must have been Michigan.
We're in off-season mode now. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cut that out of the episode, there, Sonny. I don't want the Illinois fans to hate me. Okay. I already have Purdue fans hating me. I can't have Illinois hate me.
If I have Purdue
fans and Illinois fans hating me, I do not have a future in
stay off
Ten
social media for a while.
I do not have a future. But yeah, so Florida, really good offensive rebounding team. Maryland has struggled with defensive rebounding at times this season. In the tournament, Maryland has the third worst defensive rebounding percentage among remaining Sweet 16 teams. Florida has the best offensive rebounding rate of any team in the tournament the entire time. So Florida has been absolutely spectacular there. Maryland needs to really improve. They need to keep Florida off the offensive boards. In addition to that, I know this is a weird stat, but Maryland has to keep the lead. Listen to this, Sonny. Maryland is 2-5 when the lead changes more than 10 times in a game. Those two games they won was against Villanova, 1-point win, and Colorado State, 1-point win. So when the lead changes more than 10 times in a game, they have lost or been very close to losing. I mean, they need a bucket in the last 20 seconds of the game in order to win in those games. Florida is 11-0 when the lead changes more than 4 times in a game. So Florida actually probably wants this game to be a little bit more back and forth, right? They want to go down the stretch, be back and forth, and eventually pull ahead. Maryland, they do not want that. That does not work out for them when the lead is going back and forth, because most times in the end, they've not found a way to win it there in the end. Unless it's the free throws by Derek Queen or a buzzer beater where people think he traveled by Derek Queen. That's just kind of how it works out.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Maryland was one of the teams that I had as a sleeper, as could go the furthest in the Big Ten Conference, but I think it ends here. I watched the entirety of that Florida and UConn game, and I fully expected UConn to come out and win just because of the experience that they have, and Dan Hurley having been in that position before, and Florida being, a younger team with a younger head coach. I was so incredibly impressed by the Gators, to the point now where I had Duke winning in my bracket, but I honestly would not be surprised if the Gators make it all the way.
Any of these 1 seeds can win it all. Honestly, the number 1 seed in Auburn is probably my least favorite to win it all. But all of these 1 seeds have a chance. I mean, people are clowning Jay Billis because he picked an all 1 seed Final Four. But if we're being honest, if we're really trying to pick the Final Four, that's probably going to be it.
Yeah, this was the year of chalk for sure.
Yeah. For sure.
Well, Jerry, you're the only number 1 seed in my life. Thank you again for joining us here on Locked On Illini. Let the folks know one more time where they can find your work.
Yeah, you can find me over on the Big Ten Huddle, talking things, all things over there. We have a morning show on Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday. Do some After Dark when there's games as well. We'll do an After Dark Friday and recap all the Sweet 16 games there. But other than that, it's just mornings. We'll do premieres and stuff like that. And who knows? I might drop more, money references to players that Sonny tries to hide, and then I just let out there because I have no filter, and that's just who I am.
As long as it's you and it's not me. And now that the season is over, who knows? You may see my face pop up over there on the Big Ten Huddle a little bit more often than not. JR, thank you for coming on. We'll see you soon enough, I'm sure.
Thanks, Sonny.
And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Locked On Illini. Again, on your way out, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Guys, we're at 2,500 subs. I can't believe I'm saying this. Just the speed that this channel has grown is faster than any other Illini channel here on YouTube. So I just want to sincerely thank you all, and just make sure you're subscribed to this channel. You watch this for 30 plus minutes. Why not? I'm doing this content each and every day. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.